Hello, everybody. So you've obviously gathered that my name is Zayne Turner, and I work at Salesforce. And I'm here whenever you can see the slides. But we're going to talk about web components at enterprise scale. And particularly, I want to talk about what Salesforce is doing to think about web components and lessons we've learned. But before I get too much into anything that's actually interesting, I have to remind you that Salesforce, if I can advance my slides, we're going to do this in a minute. Yes, is a publicly traded company. And so if you were here to make any purchasing decisions, you'd want to remember to do that based on our currently available, completely awesome technology, not any forward-looking statements that I or any other Salesforce employee that may be happening to hide here today might make. We're cool? All right. So when we think about web components at enterprise scale, there were really 4 areas that I thought might be useful for this audience. I want to talk about why it is that our company even went in that direction. Why are we building with web components? What does it mean for customers that are building on Salesforce? And by that, we have customers that they've bought Salesforce, they're using our products, and they're customizing it for themselves, for their companies. But we also have customers that are selling products to other people, and they're building their businesses on our platform, and they need to serve another end customer that we may not directly touch. So both of those audiences are using our web components. And of course, I also want to talk to you about what this has meant for our internal teams, how we're changing, how we're building Salesforce itself, and what that means for enterprise for us. And that's where we're going to go. So to figure out why it is that we built the way we built, we need to go back in time to about 2014. When Salesforce, we began as a CRM, customer relationship company. We quickly grew through organic and inorganic means to become a whole bunch of other things. And we have a platform. And we needed to bring that platform into the modern era. This is 2014 modern, mind you. And we introduced something called the Lightning Experience. And it was built on a framework that we created ourselves called Aura. And it was using the 2014 web. And we promised that people could build modern, amazing web applications in 2014 with this amount of web standards. So we have ECMAScript 5 going on, which gives us some sort of eventing structure. We have some standard elements, not a whole bunch. And we have some amount of rendering. And in 2014, of course, I think many of us remember, that then you answer more questions about your modern application by introducing a framework of one sort or another that's going to give you then maybe some way of doing something like a module, maybe some sort of specialized UI or specialized data services. And for us, we created a framework called Aura that let our customers do this. So in 2014, people start building on this web stack. We introduce the framework of Aura. Things are great. We have Lightning Experience. And just like the rest of the web, a lot of our customers started feeling the pain, not just from what Aura meant, but from what frameworks themselves were doing. The versions of JavaScript living in those frameworks were so abstracted, it became not JavaScript. For a Salesforce developer, you had to learn something called Aura that didn't look like anything else. And the way that Aura wanted to solve a problem wasn't the way that Angular wanted to solve the problem, or any of the other frameworks of the month or of the year. And that, for our customers, was an unacceptable amount of risk. How do you build a long-lived enterprise application on a short-lived framework? You don't know if it's going to be short-lived. Developers may not know how to ramp up on this thing. Resources may be scarce because these frameworks are so different. And of course, we noticed that our own framework wasn't as fast as pretty much anyone wanted. These abstractions in the frameworks themselves were costing the apps. So at around the same time, of course, we see the standards bodies taking notice. We see much more activity for W3C, TC39, blah, 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 blah. And we see with ECMAScript versions 6+, we get more things running natively in the web engine, running in the browser. We get promises and decorators and classes, and some of the things on this slide aren't quite in the spec yet, but the direction that we're heading is the browsers are much smarter. So today, the web stack is different. I think many of us in the room know this. It is much more capable of much more modern application out of the box. So what Salesforce started to think about was, if we're going to have a framework, let's specialize what's actually special. Let's look at our data services, some UI components, and maybe things for us, if we're going to change this, Our Lightning Web Components model is going to give you things like our specialized security. Lightning Data Service we're a metadata-driven platform. So Lightning Data Service is going to give you information about the metadata and the data itself in a unified call. We're going to give you Lightning-based components. Now, for our customers, these are specialized pieces of UI that are also metadata aware. So when we talk to customers about what Lightning Web Components, which is what we're calling this initial release of web components that we're bringing, are, this is what we tell them. If you're developing on Salesforce, you're going to get this new programming model that we announced in December publicly, built on modern web standards. So we're hoping you're going to get increased productivity because it's going to look like versions of JavaScript you're used to. We're not reinventing that syntax. It's going to be built for better performance because we're using the web engine more. We're not introducing specialized logic as much. And for us, a big thing was making it compatible and easy to use. And this goes beyond just our old framework of Aura. We wanted it to be interoperable there. But compatible with other frameworks. Things that you like to build with, it needs to play nice with that. And internally, we built on web components. We found when we started to move over our Lightning experience, before we talked about it publicly with customers, we started building our own UI. And we started getting telemetry about what this change was going to mean for us. When we did this incremental rollout, we got to then learn very carefully about what was working and what wasn't working. We saw our own developers internally. We had teams building in React, building a ton of other frameworks because they liked them. They had the tooling for it. They didn't want to switch over to something like Aura that didn't have the right tooling. And we're seeing that then by adopting the standard, they can use the tools they prefer, and they're more productive faster. And this led to, of course, more internal adoption. Different teams now don't want to go out and find an independent framework. We can all build on the same web component standard. So I want to show you what this actually means. So let's look at the shape of a web component. So I'm just going to be in VS Code, and I'm going to open up our basic version of a hello world here, the HTML file. And you can see here, the beginning and end of a simple web component is a template tag. So again, for Salesforce, this is new. It's not a proprietary XML tag, which is new in our history. It's just the HTML standard. So, which also means our developers now can use browser inspection tools. And what you have at development time is the same at runtime. You can expect that this template is going to get rendered as a custom element in the DOM. So these Lightning card, I think Lightning input, that's where you're seeing those metadata-aware base components. So this is just a card that looks like our Salesforce Lightning design system. It's got a certain kind of drop shadow and bezeled corner and X, Y, and Z. And I can fill out some tags, like label or give it a value, and then give it a title. And you see that curly bracket syntax is just where I get to bind to my JavaScript. If we go look at the JavaScript, you're going to see, lo and behold, it also looks pretty simple. We're just doing simple module named imports for our Lightning Web Components engine. We're going to give you some things. We're doing a default class export to name this component so that anything in that namespace can reference it. Start building modular code. And then we're using things like the track decorator, which is the standard we're helping to pioneer, to say, hey, I want this thing called greeting. It's in the UI. When its value becomes dirty or changes, please re-render that part of the UI for us. It's just pretty simple. But a more exciting example is when you get into something like, I don't know, I need to edit a record. So we have things like, let's look at this, record edit form, static. And let's open up the HTML. There we go. OK. So it doesn't look very pretty because prettier formatting does weird things right now with our tags. But we have a whole bunch of metadata-aware components that are essentially creating a form. I need to edit contact information in a database. It's not the most exciting app you're ever going to build, but it's pretty common. So I'm going to build something where I can edit a contact. But as we look at this, we're building it out of these Lightning input field. And the only tag I'm providing is field name. And these are all bound to attributes. Not doing too much here. It's a pretty simple form. And if we open up the JavaScript, and actually let's just do this a lot faster, it gets even more simple. I don't have any save mechanism. I had a Lightning button of type save. I have nothing else here. because that's part of that metadata awareness and those services that we're able to provide. Now, lines 3 through 7 are services we're exposing. So if you're not familiar with Salesforce, you don't have to be. You can import a schema service that will give you the information about the object and field that you need. If you're trying to use a field that doesn't exist, you're going to get a development time error. If someone working declaratively, as in we call that point and click, which is a common model on our platform, someone who's doing point and click stuff trying to delete something you need in your code, they're going to get a notice also at their development time. We're able to surface more things like referential integrity, schema awareness, common database operations without you having to code it, also because that's what the specialization is letting us do. So, what did we learn? Building with standards that we didn't make up ourselves means that we're finding developers ramp up faster, both internal and external. We're seeing better performance for these same things. We're realizing that building for interoperability, whether that's your proprietary stuff, your historical stuff, or all of the things that the community is creating, means that then your customers get to use it the way they want. That's kind of important. And you want to specialize in what's actually special, the unique value proposition that you're bringing to the table. For us, that's our platform, our metadata awareness, all of those good things. We don't want you to have to learn all of that to build a great web app. And down at the bottom, there's a bit.ly link that the code I was showing you is from something called LWC recipes, digestible snippets of how you do stuff in Lightning Web Components. You can get started in a developer edition with no other fuss, and it'll give you all the instructions to get started. So thank you for paying attention, and I'll be over there talking later.